And we are live. Welcome, everyone, this wonderful last day of the year. And what a treat! We have an amazing day with Gail here. And he's the voice behind the Harrowings, which is his Substack and his amazing podcast. And I had a great experience being with him last week when he interviewed me. So I'm returning the favor, and now I'm interviewing him. But we're probably going to be end up interviewing each other, which is great. But welcome to Gabriella's podcast, and I just wanted to see what you would like to share today about you. What comes to mind?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to sort of set the tone a little bit there. We talked a little bit about addiction, and I was talking yesterday with another person who has some experience in that, Keith Garda. I don't know if you pronounce.
Okay.
I think it maybe just Keith Gard. It's got an E on the end of it, but I tend to always pronounce it as having studied German. So
Okay.
I take it your native language was Magyar. Is that right?
Hungarian.
Yeah,
Magyar.
Hungarian.
Magyar.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Hungarian. Yes. That's correct.
yeah. And you know the way in which we engage with the world, I think, was a lot of what we ended up talking about being motivated by loving kindness, about
Mhm.
being no matter what we're doing it as an act of service. And I think maybe that sounds a little trite in our language these days. People talk a lot about service leadership and such, but to really serve, to really give of oneself, and with the idea that you are not just, in Keith's case, he's a fairly high level manager, consultant, director, producer, um, has, has his credit having co managed Aerosmith. So stumbled into that in the late 80s and into the 90s. And in the course of that, having found recovery himself. And it's an interesting thing when a band whose primary members were known as the Toxic Twins are the ones to intervene on you. Right. I think that's part of his story. We'll probably talk about that later offline, and maybe online. But to get that message across that people can heal from all kinds of trauma that happens as we go through life. I was using Heidegger's example of Geworfenheit, which means thrownness, that we are thrown into this world kind of
Yes.
helpless into the hands of other primates. And, we are then blank slates, perhaps, that depending on how people look at it, maybe we're not quite blank when we arrive, but we have this huge amount of cultural information to take in. Though genetically we're not very diverse because of collapse of our population at different points in history, but culturally we have tremendous amounts of baggage to ingest, to take in, and then to try to navigate. And I think all of
Absolutely.
us are trying to navigate that these days, particularly as social media throws us together.
Yes.
Now, that's a good off the cuff starting point, huh?
Yeah, I just want to say welcome to Charles and Jack who
Oh,
joined us.
yes.
Thank you for coming. And we are just having a conversation. So if you have any questions or anything you want to contribute, please write it in a chat. And or
Mhm.
if there's a specific question you want us to talk about, also let us know. Yes, I agree. We do get kind of thrown into this cultural mix, and it depending on where you grow up. Like for me, growing up in Hungary, it was very different than here growing up in the US. And
Okay.
then I still, even though I've been here like over 30 years, there's still things I don't get because I just don't know. I didn't grow up in with those movies or those, words or whatever it was. So if you make a reference that I don't know, I really don't know. So sorry about
Oh, yeah.
that.
You know, the culture is really fragmented too. So go
Yes.
ahead.
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about in our last podcast about addiction, and that's a topic that both of us are familiar with from different angles. So what you have seen that from your perspective that you feel like helped people recover from addictions?
Well, I think it can be summed up by just a few words: connection.
Connection,
One of
I agree.
us working with another, we've
Mhm.
both been there, we know what it's like, and we can have authenticity in working with
Mhm.
others, right? So it's that old adage. Have you heard this one before? A guy falls down a manhole, and somebody passes by, a preacher passes by and starts
Yeah,
reading
yeah.
Bible verses to him, and then somebody else passes by, a psychologist, says, "Well, you got to get to know yourself," and it goes on and on, and finally, another fellow sufferer jumps down in with him, and
Mhm.
he says, "Now we're both down here. How's that going to help?" He says, "Well, I know I've been down here, and I know the way out."
Yeah.
And actually, they were thinking of following the big book or the book Alcoholics Anonymous, The
Yeah.
Way Out, until they found out when I think Fitz. Oh God, am I going to remember his name? No, probably not. He's anonymous. The guy who was one of the early AAs
Yes.
went to the Library of Congress and found that there were already 12 books called The Way Out. And
Mhm.
they thought, well, maybe the 13th way out isn't the way to go. I don't know if it's fear of the number 13 that caused that. I think that's apocryphal, though, because there was a book called The Way Out that was written by a guy named Joseph Benner, who happened to be big on the scene and died right around 1935 or so in Akron, Ohio. And he's an interesting character if you dig into Joseph Benner and some of his stuff. I don't have it on file in the archives right now. I haven't thought about it in a long time. It just popped up when I said The Way Out.
That's all right.
But you get the idea that we're
Yeah.
actually, I don't know what part of recovery you're coming from or what you've used to get to where you are. I went through like the conventional route of coming in off the street and saying, well, fine, I've seen AA back in 85 and I wasn't too impressed, but here is 97. My girlfriend's just dumped me. My plan for being a kept man is out the window. I'm going to kill myself with a clean conscience, but I'll go to one AA meeting. And when they don't have an answer, I can do it with a clean conscience. And I went to one AA meeting. And after the meeting, I went up to the guy who brought up the topic and said, man, it sounds like we're in the same boat. Maybe we can help each other out. I had turned from a person who was suicidal out of selfishness, really, out of like, oh, my girlfriend dumped me. I'm worthless. I don't know. I don't really have a steady job. What am I going to do? I might as well kill myself at 34 years old. Right. And instead, I went up to a guy and said, it sounds like we're in the same boat. I thought enough about what he said, which is, what do you do when you're
Yeah.
paralyzed with fear, unable to get out of bed in the morning? And I related so well to that idea because that's exactly where I had been the previous Wednesday. But this was Friday and we'd gotten up out of bed, right?
There you
And we
go.
went into coffee. Said, maybe we can help each other out.
Nice.
And I had stumbled onto the formula. I gave him my phone number, he gave me his, and then he stuttered. He had had a dominating father. I think that had a lot to do with his stutter, but he
Mhm.
stuttered out that maybe I'd want to join him and another guy who I thought might not be all that tightly wrapped. It shared it largely about his shoes. And the shoes became very important because he was using them to get from place to place. Um, and so was I. And anyway, that guy and me and the other one, yeah, the three of us, we went to coffee at a little place called Kiba Han, no longer exists, but it was at the corner of South Craig and Forbes Avenue in Pittsburgh, PA,
Nice.
in the Oakland neighborhood, right across from the Carnegie Museum of Art, where I later
Okay.
have a getting sober job as in the conservation section. So, one thing led to another. I worked in the conservation section. We also took care of the Andy Warhol Museum. You can read about one of our treatments in Discover Magazine 2000, top stories of, or 2001, I think it is, because it was the top stories of 2000 for science stories, was our treatment that we did on an Andy Warhol painting. It had gotten kissed, but they had given up lipsticks at a party they had there. And that's not a really good idea to give out lipsticks as party favors in an art museum
Hopefully
because
not.
somebody's bound to kiss something they ought not kiss.
Oh my god.
And I don't know, that's the story a lot of people have of having kissed something they probably shouldn't have, or
I'm sure there's
someone.
a lot of I'm sure there's a lot of stories there. So I just wanna answer your question that you had, like what route of recovery. So
Yeah, yeah.
I have never used any substances. I've been in addiction treatment as a nurse from
I
the other
gotcha.
side. So I have helped people in hospital settings to detox and also in the treatment settings, for longer term treatment and also in the community setting, just to kind of help with resources and things like that. And I have done groups like smart recovery groups and things like that to help
That's smart.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I I have seen it from the other side. I have been in an AA meeting as an observer or going
Mhm,
somebody to support people who are in
mhm.
it. But I mean, the only addiction I am guilty of is food, which can be very difficult. Cheeses, chocolates, breads, those are my enemy, but they are very different from, the substance use and drug addiction, which is a very serious problem in the world right now. And I do have to say that a lot of people, what I have seen, and I don't know what was your experience, but what I have seen is people go to the substances because they don't get help other ways. So the community that you were talking about, the support or whatever is needed might not be there. So then people go to, or they miss the coping skills that are not taught um, in a young enough age, and people turn to things. But also, welcome, Alan. Alan just says, "I love chocolate too." Yes,
Well,
chocolate is
I have
really
some
good.
words about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Chocolate is really good, but
Just ate some.
depending on how much you eat and what kind, the dark chocolate is the one that's actually really good for our heart. So
A
if you
little
have
bit.
a little bit of dark chocolate that has no added sugar, that's okay. We get into trouble when we eat, chocolate that's not real chocolate or have a lot of sugar in it or milk chocolate that has no chocolate in it and those kind of things. But dark cocoa and actual dark chocolate, like 99% dark, which is kind of actually a little bitter, those are the best chocolates for you
A
when we
little
use
bitter.
it.
A lot.
You
Actually,
could.
it's 100%. My wife does 100%. Now, my wife did, the FA program. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I have not.
Well, it's kinda like the Third Reich, I like to say, of overeaters programs.
Okay.
And in the course of 8 months, my wife had a stroke, as I may have talked about before, and she's paralyzed on the left side of her body, so exercise is kinda out of the question.
Okay.
But in the course of 8 months, she dropped 80 pounds on this program, which says something about calorie restriction. No flour, no
Absolutely.
sugar. It's not about gluten. It's about sugar and flour,
Sugar
particularly
and flour.
the flour goes into, sugar pretty quickly in the bloodstream.
Yes. Mhm.
So you don't do any of those things. You tend to avoid processed foods generally. Weigh and measure everything you eat, 3 meals a day, nothing between, and you call your sponsor every morning at 6 a.m. to commit your food.
Oh,
And you go
wow.
to in meetings, you don't share for the first, I think it's 90 days. You can read, but you can't share until you've
Mhm.
got, like, or maybe it's 60 days of abstinence. And abstinence means that you've committed your food, you've weighed and measured everything you've eaten, you haven't had anything between. And she did fine on that. I mean, the weight came off, and it will come off. Anybody
Mhm.
who does it,
Mhm.
obviously, but it takes discipline. And it
Yeah.
takes also their idea is very rigid, and
Mhm.
that's something that I think the actual AA program from which a lot of these things sprang, some of the methods they use are from the more dogmatic sect of our fellowship, and,
Mhm.
like, calling 3 people a day is a important part of theirs, and they just call it outreach calls. So they're not actually really, as long as they have to connect with a person. You can't just leave a message on their answering machine or text. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have to actually
Connection is
talk to
important.
somebody. And using telephones, I think, is very
Mhm.
important as well. So that's the FA program part of it. I mean, I'm not part of it, so you can go to, foodaddicts.org is the website. In fact, we could write that in the chat. But I'm not gonna do that right now because 'cause I'm on the phone. It's awkward. I'll move my
No,
camera
I
all
can I
around.
can do it.
But Food Addicts, all one string, lowercase, .org, and it came out of the Overeaters Anonymous program's Gray Sheeters. There was a thing called a Gray Sheet, And that ties back to Warhol because in one of his time capsules, I don't know if you know much about Andy, but he would clear his desk every so often into a standard shipping box or packing box and ship it off to a warehouse in New Jersey with a date on it. So those formed an archive. And it's just amazing. They got all these things from the warehouse into the Andy Warhol Museum and started unboxing them. And they have display cases, those glass covered
Mhm.
cases with all
Yeah.
the things that were in the box. And one of the things I saw in one of those, and they change them, they rotate them, so it may not be up right now, was the gray sheet from Overeaters Anonymous. And I don't know why Andy had it, but he seemed to be pretty slim. But yeah, so a lot of people have issues with food, and he had a lot of issues with candy in particular. I think he had a
Mhm.
sugar addiction, and Eric Clapton said that his addiction really started with sugar, and a lot of us with
It's one of
alcohol, it's the same thing.
it's the most I mean, alcohol has a lot of sugar in it.
Precisely,
Absolutely.
precisely. That's my point.
Yeah.
It's high carb, and when a person is detoxing, as you probably are well aware, a lot of what they're missing is the liquid carbs.
Yeah, and
You
then they
know?
eat a lot, and then the same with smoking too. A lot of people go to candies, go to sugar, and with any type of addiction. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's to change how we feel, right? It's to reset something that's uncomfortable within our nervous system or
Yes.
our system generally, because I think we are one thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, one way that it's explained to us on the other side, and how I was teaching it to people who are dealing with addiction, is that imagine that you have your brain, and your brain is basically hijacked by whatever the substance is, and the brain learns to like it and keep liking it, and learns this pathway, just like with any type of behavior, that this is the best way to do it. It's a shortcut. It's a shortcut to pleasure, a shortcut to making yourself feel good. So, of course, if somebody does something and it makes them feel good, they want to do more and more and more. And even though later it might not feel good, the pathway is there. So the habit is there. So it's breaking the habit, which creates difficulty. And with food, it's extremely difficult
Mhm.
because it's everywhere, right? You go into the grocery store
You gotta eat. Yeah.
and it's there. So um to limit and where you go and what you buy and all those kind of things can also make a great impact. And to read the labels, like how much sugar is actually in things before you buy them, how many carbs and sugar and all those things. Hi Lee, also thank you for joining. We are talking about different topics, and right now we were just talking about food addiction and substance use addiction. But if you guys, anybody have any questions or any specific things you guys want us to talk about, let us know.
Yeah, and the gray sheet, of Overeaters Anonymous was apparently really, helpful to a lot of people and people adhering to it. I think a
Yeah.
lot of us have control issues. And that's a huge part of the whole thing too, and, the chaotic nature of people who are in active addiction is like a backlash to control almost, but then they try to control whatever it is, and, well, letting go. So much of this is, to my mind, is about being able to release all things. I was sitting in a meeting years ago. It was in
Mhm.
Posper Hall, and that's on the site of Old Forbes Field in Pittsburgh. And, there was a meeting that happened there pretty regularly. There are a couple of them on Friday and Saturday nights, have different names. I love the fact that all these meetings have different names, and they, quite often are very funny, like there was one called, Jens is sober." Jens is how they say "you all" in Pittsburgh, "ease,"
Okay.
right? And they called it that because they were seen going into a church, and the neighbors were, like, suspicious. They were being a bit, and they say in Pittsburgh, "nebby," which kinda means nosy. Yeah,
Mhm.
highly. And they saw these people going in, were wanting to know, "What Ian's doing in that there?" And, they said, well, this we're opening up for an AA meeting," and they said, Jens is sober." So they started calling the meeting Jens is sober. It later became Young Hope, and it was over in, Mount Washington, I think, in that area of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's like a lot of little small towns all put together, and they have all different ethnicities sort of potted in different places. So it's really kinda nice that way, I find. I miss it sometimes here in DC where we're pretty homogenous. Um,
I never been in either of those places, so
and you were in, Washington State, right? Or is
I'm
it
in
Oregon?
Oregon.
Oregon.
I'm in Oregon, actually.
Oregon?
Astoria.
Astoria. Got I knew it
Yeah,
started with an A.
the tippy top corner, right I can see into Washington from my window, actually. I see the
Wow.
mountains, Washington,
Yeah. You can't quite see Russia from your house, but yeah.
just across the Columbia River.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm sure there was something else I was gonna go to, but you take it from here.
That's all right. I wanted to check in with you about, obviously you have a Substack and you do a podcast because I was on it last week, which thank you, by the way. And, I wanted to see, I know that you're doing little walks every morning, right? And you do the lives, and you kinda wanna talk about a little bit how you started on Substack and with your podcast and about these walks?
Well, my inspiration, I was writing about it this morning a little bit because, yesterday was Patti Smith's 79th birthday. Hi, Natasha. And, Natasha's a friend, as well
Oh,
down here in this
awesome, Natasha. Thank
area.
you for joining us.
And then, Lee Penman is a new friend who's in Manhattan, and we've gotten to connected from a mutual connection to having I subscribed to Patti Smith's daughter's, Substack. Well, Patty has her own Substack, and she'll just go live from her bedroom, kinda like I'm live from here, right?
Yeah,
And so we'll start
I
talking.
think you mentioned that when
Yeah.
we were talking too, yeah.
And I liked the passing show idea. It comes from Ronnie Lane's The Passing Show, a caravan
Mhm,
he took around England
mhm.
during part of his early recovery or attempted recovery from multiple sclerosis that eventually did the poor man in. But I liked the idea that we're all just members of the passing show. You know, we're all temporary. Life itself is a temp job. It is a process of letting go. That's where I was going with the Phosphor Hall story. I lost track of. And I heard a guy intone this in a meeting one time. He said, "Life is just a continual series of losses."
Mhm.
And having, lost my father, I decided I would, start to work on my Substack more. Then I lost my job, and I decided, well, I'm going to really double down on this and try to make a go of it. I am now up to 18 paid subscribers, which I'm really grateful for. Of course, that's not enough to keep the lights on long term, but I'm continuing my slow growth and my organic, kind of shambolic way of doing it. I'm taking the word shambolic actually from like shambles, like
Okay.
things that are chaotic. The shambolic way of being as part of my ethos. I mean, and I got that a bit from Patty when she would go live
Yeah.
and she would just be in her bedroom and she'd be like, "Oh, hello, I just wanted to check in with everybody, and I don't really have anything to say," and she'll do that for 18 minutes. And luckily, she's got some sort of feeling of boundary. I did one last night that must have been a half hour, more like 40 minutes or something, where I just started going off on whatever was around me and whatever I felt like talking about, and, my philosophy. I'm number 69 rising in philosophy in the categories on Substack right now.
Nice.
So a lot of what I'm doing is crafting that philosophy. I have one. I have many threads, right? I don't
Yes.
know if you're familiar. We're good. I'm always doing these obscure cultural references,
That's
and this
absolutely
one,
fine.
this one isn't terribly obscure. Have you ever seen The Big Lebowski? One of the Coen
Yes,
brothers
I
films.
have. I have seen that. Yes.
Yeah, so lots of old threads in the old duder's head, lots of ins, lots of outs, a lot of what have yous.
Yes.
And then there's Robert Anton Wilson, who I was amplifying the other day with his maybe logic, in which he says, I don't believe anything, but I have many suspicions.
Fair enough.
And I'm watching the passing show thinking, I wonder what's going on in that guy's head over there. I wonder
Mhm,
how conscious they are, how awake, how aware they are.
mhm.
I don't know how awake and aware I am.
Well, you are
What
here. I am here. We are having a conversation.
what kind of
So,
doctor? Yeah, you got a question.
okay. Hi, Angel. Sorry, I said Angela, and I'm listening intently to this wonderful man, but I'm also keeping an eye on the chat. So I'm multitasking. So I'm doing kind of both because she was saying, well, I'm doing more on the chat than I'm listening to see you. I'm doing both. Um, so I have a doctorate in public health, community health, and I have a master's in nursing. Thank you for asking.
And public health. I mean,
Yes.
we have a sick care system in the United States, as I think you might agree.
I agree 100%. And I would love if it would move toward wellness, that we support people on being well and being healthy instead of being a reactive system. I advocate for prevention because every little bit that we invest in prevention, it gives so much more back than reactive medicine, community health. Where did I go to school? I went to school to Walden University for my PhD.
Where's Walden?
That's the name of the university, Walden.
Where is it?
It's in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay, I didn't
Yeah.
know. You see,
It
I
was
know
an online
Walden from
it was an
Thoreau.
online school because, I was working next to it, so I did online, and then you had to go to residencies in different places. So, yeah, I went to one in Alabama, I went to one in Florida, and I did a few online residencies as well with the public health. And my focus was Walden. No, it's with an E. Walden.
Yeah, people want to drag us into that quagmire.
Wal Walden University. It
There
has
we
nothing
go.
to do.
Uh,
What, the favorite residency? I think I love to travel, so anywhere where I had to go, I mean, I loved, just walking around in Alabama and also loved to walking around in Florida, but the main idea was there to connect with other students and the teachers and be able to sit down and have conversations and solve problems and things like that. And we did presentations. It's the in-person connection because most of the school was online. So it was really good for us to get together and meet each other. And many of us kept in contact for a while and also to meet some of the teachers who I kept in contact for a while or still do. So that was the idea of the residencies. So they were different type of residencies than when you go and like you're a doctor and you have to serve on a clinic or for something like that. This was just a school and students and teachers and professors coming together type of residency.
yeah.
My dissertation. All right,
Well,
I have
do you
a lot
guys just want to go ahead and get Angel live on here, and I'll just step aside?
no, 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 no.
Okay,
This was emergency preparedness. And now let's go back to this amazing gentleman
I have a
and learn
topic.
about him. Yeah, let's talk. What topic you want to talk about?
More real fun? No. Okay. Um, yeah, I do think Angel, you might want to get on with either one of us at some point. Angel just joined recently in Substack, and we started going back and forth when I was doing one of my lives, and that was kind of interesting. So I think that maybe her being here has something to do with me being here. In any case, or I guess it's a her. I don't know. Angel Woods could be anything. I don't know. I never know what
Yeah.
people's real names are. I believe your real name is what it says it is, and mine is as well.
Right.
Actually, Hal is a nickname for Harold. And I am the Harrowings is the publishing arm of the Harold B. Gill Foundation, LLC, that I started when my father passed and I'd lost the gig. And I decided I wanted to steward his legacy of all of his creative work, which includes me. Part of his creative work, right? A particular part. We don't really think a lot about that, but all the different people that had to come together in order for us to be here now,
Mhm.
and just that cascade and what an unlikely, um, zoo it must have
I
been.
I think about that a lot. You know,
Good,
my
good.
parents, grandparents, great grandparents, all the people, and where they had to be for me to be here, and what they went through for me to be here. I think
Yep.
it's to think about.
And how many people didn't make it? and it
Yeah.
comes down to the number of people who, yeah, and, right now, I'm thinking I was came here in 1963, February 4th,
Okay.
and lo and behold, you know, there's 3,000,000,000 people who were on the planet then, there are only about a half a million of them left. No, half
Mhm.
a billion of them left. So, that means that everybody who is not 63 or I'm almost 63, so not quite, but older,
Mhm.
are everybody else is younger. Of those, like, half a billion, and there's 8,000,000,000 now, that means 7.5 billion people have showed up since I got here? That's a big party.
It's a very big party
We
that
can
we
go
know
back
of, right? There could be more. I mean, that's just an estimate of how many people there are. There could be more.
That's 8.25 billion last I counted with the world population clock. That's pretty reliable, I think. You're not gonna have an exact count ever, but they know statistically, and
Yeah.
you can watch it ebb and flow as it goes down and up and down and up and down and up like that because the death rate is still a little bit lower than the birth rate. Eventually, they think it's gonna plateau probably around
And
2050.
it's gonna start to go down because, I don't know if you know about the Hungarian population, but the Hungarian population is dying out.
Yep, and Italian.
Yeah.
The pneumonia, pointed out as a big problem in Italy. Are you
Yeah.
familiar with that term? Ben who stay with their mothers into middle age. Well, life is a continual flow. And what I really think what lights me up inside is the fact we are here. We're alive.
Yeah.
We get an opportunity to practice, and everything we do makes an impact. You're probably familiar with Jane Goodall and her passing recently.
Absolutely.
I was
Yes.
supposed to see her at Listener Auditorium on October 7th, but she died October 1st. And, after, natural causes, I think died in her sleep, if I'm not mistaken. But on Netflix, she had pre-recorded something to be released in the event of her death.
Yes, and I love that video. It's so
Wasn't it
beautiful.
good? Wasn't it good?
Oh, you haven't seen it? Oh, you
I
gotta see it.
amplify it. I
Okay.
amplify it.
Yeah. I I watched it like twice, and it's
Mhm.
one of those things that you can keep watching because she has so much wisdom.
Well, the message is quite simple,
Yeah.
and I think the message is the part that's important, not the personality, but the actual call to action.
Yes.
And what is the call to action? Do you wanna articulate it or shall I?
I think I talked more than you do, so yeah. You
Doesn't
can
matter.
share it, and then I add my 2 cents to it. How about that?
Okay, it's largely that every thing we do has an impact. We matter.
Yes.
Unless we move faster than the speed of light by the square of the speed of light, and then we energy.
I mean, part of us are energy and was and going to be in the future what I believe in. But I do believe in everything matters, and that's why, like, I started my my work in Dancing Elephant Press, and my own work is to try to
Mm.
send positivity out to the world as much as I can. It doesn't mean that there's never any sadness or negativity, but there's enough negativity. There's enough wars and terrors and horrors out there. So what I'm trying to do is do small positive things, whether it's with poetry or with great conversations or building connections or community to share that love of nature and earth and animals and people, you know, um, and hopefully all those little things plant seeds and then those seeds grow. And the more of us doing it, the better it gets. That's my hope.
And that's the point of harrowings, right? When you're harrowing a field, you're churning up the soil to get it prepared for planting. And so I'm churning things up, I hope. I hope that
Oh,
I
yes, you
stir
are.
people up.
Hmm.
I hope I get them awake and aware and conscious. Think. You got this thing up here, this prefrontal cortex we've added into the rest of the architecture of our brains. And I don't understand how consciousness works. I don't understand entirely how everything that goes into our machinery that we've developed is serving us and what might be undermining us. So that's one of the reasons I'm interested in artificial intelligence as well. But I think there's a right uh, opportunity for the good outweighing the evil. And I don't know if you're familiar with Steven Pinker. He's a writer, and he's done a number of
I
things.
don't think I have heard about him. No.
I encountered him when I was taking a linguistics course, in the summer in my
Mm.
graduate studies. And there's a book he wrote called The Language Instinct, which is really worth the time of him.
Okay.
And he also wrote another one called The Blank Slate. I think I mentioned briefly that, when we're launched into the world, we're like blank slates and we have to be taught.
Yes.
We have to be carefully taught, as the song went in. Oh, God, help me out. It's that old Rodgers and Hammerstein musical that you have to be carefully taught to hate, right?
Mm.
And it's the prejudice. I think it was I want to say Bali High, but I'm not sure that's right. There was maybe that was another song in the South Pacific. That was the name of the musical. Okay. And, for me, I just happened to flip open a book and I found tucked away in it this little card, and it's blurry. There it is. There's more stable. Amnesty International. And
Okay.
I got involved in that. And I think I'm wandering away from what we were talking about a second ago, but I hope you don't mind. I do that. I'm
That's fine.
digressive.
We just talked about doing good things and doing it all, and
Yeah, and one of the things we can support is Amnesty International, which helps to free political prisoners, right?
hmm
That's an important thing. And I got involved in that because, well, a young lady decided to invite me to a Waging Peace event, and then Amnesty was also being sponsored by a member of the faculty who was responsible for religious life at Randolph-Macon College, where I went to college in Ashland, Virginia. Shout out to the center of the universe. That's what Ashland is nicknamed. They nicknamed the town itself the center of the universe because it's actually the center of Virginia. And if you know how Virginians are, they think Virginia is the universe. Anyway, and the guy wrote a book called The Awakener, and
Okay.
this is it. I'm holding it up so you can see his name because it's not
Yeah.
on the cover. He was humble enough not to put his own name on the cover because it's about Mayor Baba,
hmm
the Awakener, who was
Okay.
trying to help awaken humanity to its essential unity. And I was one of my guests on Harrowing some time ago is Julia, who I think right now is in the Canary Islands, but was in Santa Monica when I was talking to her. And she's got a site. Her Harrowings is called Henosis. Are you familiar with Henosis? I was not.
No, I'm not.
It's about oneness, about how all of this apparent duality, dark, light, night, day, is apparent duality, but there's really a unity. There is, and
That's
a
correct.
lot, a lot of spirituality is based around non-duality. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I do believe in that. I didn't have that term for it, but I do write a lot about that, and I do believe in unity and the oneness in the universe, and that we are all connected in some way or another.
Yeah. And so I was like, what, 20 years old, 22, somewhere around that, when I went to Amnesty International's Southeast Regional Conference in New Orleans and got a little taste of New Orleans. Um,
Mm,
and, that's a pretty interesting culture there as well. And we
absolutely.
have such diversity within our country that makes us stronger, I think, for that. And I like to talk
It
about
should
that
be
when,
celebrated, by the way, right? That
what was it?
diversity should be celebrated instead of divided.
Yeah, I mean, it serves the power to keep people divided so that we can't unite and use the power that the people have. And that brings me back to Patti Smith. I don't know how familiar you are with their work, but one of her more important songs is People Have the Power.
hmm We do.
Flip it simple.
If we let it be, right? If we let it
Right.
build the community and support each other instead of divide over who cares about what gender, what sexual orientation, who you love, all these things don't really matter, right? But it's to keeping us divided that it was a good point to say that that brings power to some people, which is not the best thing for us, is it?
No, and we believe we're powerless. We've been convinced we are powerless. This is a big message within the recovery community, right? You're powerless over alcohol, that your life has become unmanageable, like the first step of AA. And I think that a lot of people revolt at that, but they don't realize necessarily that that is written in the past tense, and we find a power greater than ourselves. And where do we find it? Deep down within.
Yes, insight.
They added Appendix 2 to the second printing of the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous to say that what we've really done here to clear up the confusion that we might have generated by giving people the idea that they needed to have some sort of white light spiritual conversion to get sober.
Mhm,
What we've really done is we've tapped an unsuspected inner resource. Closer than my next breath is this inner resource. And if I hold my breath, I will be separated from that inner resource within a few minutes. Right?
mhm,
And so breathing, what is the Latin root of breath? Spiritus.
mhm.
And when I hear people talk about, spirituality, which was really a hot topic in our culture these days, I say, are you breathing?
Yeah.
You're having a spiritual experience. Stop breathing. See how long your spirit and body stay together. It's easily proven empirically. So let's keep it simple.
Breathe.
Keep it very concrete as well. Keep it real. Keep it
Mhm,
raw. Keep it authentic. And I guess that's what we were talking about with both my guest recently, Keith Gard, who was, as
mhm.
I mentioned, had on yesterday. And it was a really good talk. I did it on Google Meet and then uploaded it in the evening, so it took a while to get up there. I ended up talking a lot about the breath with Sonny Triple, who joined us when your connection was a little
Yeah,
spotty.
that was that was great. I really liked her, and,
Yeah, she's sweet.
yeah, I wanna go back and watch both of those. I haven't had a chance yet, but I will.
I did some singing actually with Sonny
You did
yesterday.
some singing? Oh, I would
Yeah,
love
so
to
we,
hear her
we
singing.
worked through some Fairport Convention and I don't know what all. That was one of my favorites, though, is Fairport Convention. Have you ever heard the band called Fairport Convention?
No, I have not.
Well, they're easy to find, and all these things are so findable now, right? It's
Yes, I
pastiche of
couldn't.
things. I just get up my YouTube, and there they are. Um, there was a singer who had problems with alcohol,
Mhm.
um, Sandy Denny. And she's probably most famous, well, she's famous enough, but she's most famous probably for singing the female parts in the Battle of Evermore on Led Zeppelin 4, which is the Runes album with Led Zeppelin, but had Stairway to Heaven on it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard the Battle of Evermore. That's kind of a deeper cut off of
No,
that album,
I'm
but
laughing
it's
because you mentioned singing, and now in the chat, Alan says, "Let's hear your singing voice."
well, we might be trying to do it. It's tough. I don't seem to have it. Do I have any lyrics up right now? Is the question. Oh, Karina. I have Karina Reichman up.
You can
Um,
just make up a song, you
I
know?
don't do that.
I do.
Well, you could. Feel free.
Oh, I was always told not to sing because I don't have a good voice, but I like to sing, so I sing when I want.
Well, I've always been told I have a face for radio,
You do.
a voice as well, but a face too. But it's just a joke. I was at the Locken Festival some time ago, and I was passing by one of the security checkpoints. And I said something to the guy, I forget what it was, just a greeting or whatever, and he just went, "Oh my god, listen to your voice." Like, yeah, don't encourage me, my wife would tell you.
No, I would love to hear yours.
No, it's fun.
If you feel up to singing something, please do.
Oh, I got so many things I like to talk about too. Um,
Oh,
this
we
is
have plenty of time, and we can always do more of these too.
about breath, "The Way of the Psychonaut" by Stanislav
Okay. Yeah.
Grof. He has another thing called holotropic breath work, which people can use to achieve the same things that people achieved with psychedelic therapy. I don't know
Yeah.
how much you've been into the use of psychedelics
I am very
in the
familiar with
treatment.
the research and the treatment, yes.
Tell me about it, and I'll look something up, and then we'll do a little song.
Well, it creates a change in the brain and the mind. So now they are doing research even at probably I can say this publicly, hopefully not going to get into trouble, but I know that they are doing research about it at the VA and using it for trauma and substance abuse. So, and many times as just as many as one treatment, were able to unlock the past history and the trauma, and people were able to move past that quicker in a different sense than how we approached treatment before. It's almost like opening a door with a key, and people are able to walk through a block that they haven't been able to do before.
Right.
It can be very good for some people. It could be very dangerous for some people. People who have severe mental health issues, it could be a problem. Like I'm talking about people potentially with schizophrenia or other mental health issues. I know some people really believe it, some people are really against it. I am not in either way. I think every human being can make a decision for themselves what works for them. I know a lot of people who have tried it, who have used it. I have never personally used it, so I can't speak to that, but I've spoken to people who have and who swear by using it or microdosing or all different type of things. And nature gives us many things that are good for us and bad for us. So I believe that the research shows that it could be really helpful in many cases where science had not succeeded before. So if I go by the scientific fact, I say it helped a lot of people and it will help a lot more people. Thank you, Paul and Karen, for joining.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Karen, I know Paul from Ohio, I believe, from my guest of the passing show. And so I go about the streets and take in whatever I'm to see. Yeah, I did find Farewell, Farewell by Fairport Convention. It's fairly short, so I'll give it to you. That's the one I didn't get to work with Sunny on yesterday until after she had left. She had to catch a cab because she was in New York, or actually New Jersey, I think, at a hotel where she had been at Fish the night before at Madison Square Garden. Do you know about Fish? Phish?
No,
Okay.
I don't.
I don't much either, but in the '90s, they became really big, some guys from Vermont, and, Trey Anastasio, the guitarist, is quite a mensch. He actually has an organization called Divided Sky Foundation, which is a rehab organization, basically, to help people
Okay.
get off drugs and alcohol, because he
Mhm.
had to. There's a really good YouTube of Trey talking about drug court. 'Cause
Okay.
around about 2006, Fish had broken up, and he was, like, really drug sick, and he got stopped by the cops, and he was given the choice of, you can go to jail or you can go to drug court,
Yeah.
and drug court involved, basically rehabilitation, and he missed one of his, scheduled sessions or something, and they were very, like, all or nothing about it, and he had to spend some
Mhm.
time in jail, like a weekend.
Mhm.
So he got the inside look of what that would have been like, as well
Mhm.
as coming back out, and the difference, and how he stays in touch with people who were in drug court with him. He said, "I'm a big advocate for it." And with his, I forget exactly what her role was, but a role like yours probably, and counseling and, um, nursing and public health, the kind of person, I think, with liaison with the courts or whatever. Um, they formed Divided Sky Foundation. So that's doing really good work, and,
That
I
sounds
like.
amazing. Yeah, definitely send me the info and then we'll put it before this, goes live on Substack.
Yeah,
We'll put it in the bottom and we can also link that to YouTube. I am a firm believer if somebody's doing good work related to addiction, public health, mental health, anything like that, yeah, I'm happy to spread the word.
that's it, right? Amplifying signal through the noise. Um
Absolutely, absolutely.
And here's Farewell, Farewell from, Fairport Convention, 1969 it was. Sandy fell down the stairs in her house and died of her injuries, I believe, and I think it said that it was alcohol-related. I'll have to fact check that. I don't wanna cast aspersions on her memory in any way. And, it really shouldn't, because
Yeah.
this type of thing is not something somebody chooses for themselves. It is something that happens within our bodies, and then some of us are get the resources we need, others do not.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see, how's it go? Farewell. That's a pretty good note to start on. Farewell, farewell to you who would hear, you lonely travelers all. The cold north wind will blow again. The winding road does call. And will you never turn to see your bruised and beaten sons? Oh, I would, if welcome I were, for they loathe me, every one. And will you ne'er cut the cloth or drink the light to be? And can you ne'er swear a year to any one of we? No, I will ne'er cut the cloth or drink the light to be, but I'll swear a year to one who lies asleep alongside of me. Farewell, farewell to you who would hear, you lonely travelers all. The cold north wind will blow again. The winding road will call. There's another one more famous called Who Knows Where the Time Goes. It's on Unhalf Bricking, again, 1969. There's so many good ones on this Unhalf Bricking. I think it's my favorite album. And it goes, how does it go? Let's see. For who knows? I gotta find the first note of it actually. It's,
You
if
can just
I'll
look
look it
for
up.
you can do it whatever feels right for you.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Just give me a half a second here.
No, absolutely. I love
Who knows where the time goes? I've almost got it. Yeah.
yeah.
The first note. Actually, it looks like Judy Collins might have written it. And boop. There's what I'm looking for. First notes. I don't know if the sound's coming through. A lot of times the
Yes, it
sound is
does.
filtered.
It does.
Um,
It's coming through. Yeah.
yeah. Across the evening sky. That's how it goes. Across the evening sky, all the birds are leaving. But how can they know it's time for them to go before the winter fire? I will still be dreaming. I have no thought of time. For who knows where the time goes? Who knows where the time goes? Sad, deserted shore, your fickle friends are leaving. Ah, but then you know it's time for them to go, but I will still be here. I have no thought of leaving. I do not count the time. For who knows where the time goes? Who knows where the time goes? And I am not alone while my love is near me. I know if I will be so till it's time to go. So come the storms of winter, and the birds in spring again. Have no fear of time, for who knows how my love grows, and who knows where the time goes. And when I was talking with Keith Gard, we ended up talking a little bit about Aerosmith that he managed, and talking about the five guys in the band being so tightly woven. And then I spun off to the Grateful Dead, where Phil Lesh, who wrote this book here, Searching for the Sound, it's called, his memoir, um, in which I found my Amnesty card. Anyway, he said, they're like the Grateful Dead were like the fingers on one hand. And he was big into something called blessing, which was blending and meshing, that he took from a term in a science fiction novel that he was reading back in the early 60s by Theodore Sturgeon. And I don't know if you know Theodore Sturgeon, the sci-fi writer, but it's worth knowing about. But he wrote a story called More Than Human about all these kids with these different disabilities. But once they got together, kind of like X-Men or something, I guess, they suddenly had a unified kind of consciousness.
Mhm.
I was binging recently a film or a mini series on Amazon Prime called The Peripheral, which I highly recommend people see, even though the writer's strike killed the second season. I think there would have been more seasons than that because it's a 125 chapter book by William Gibson that it's based upon. And
Okay.
in that, you have a similar situation. The soldiers, um, veterans of war, have embedded in their skin something called haptics that allows them, through artificial intelligence, basically, to link up, kind of like Neuralink that's underway. So
Mhm.
I'm very interested in the cutting edge of technology. My friend that I interviewed yesterday, Kevin, he's also very interested in it. He manages Michelle Ezrick, who's a director who did this film, the Wavy Gravy movie, Saint Misbehaving, which is, as they say here at the top, an unabashed love letter to the world. You really have a hard time not feeling uplifted by this guy's life story. This is the 10th anniversary edition, by the way, came out in 2019, so it's been around. What else do I want to talk about along those lines? I think that's enough for now.
Okay. So I wanna go back a little bit to, first of all, Alan was really enjoying your singing, and then now he's asking if you can play the guitar. So maybe if you feel up to it. And then wanna just to say hi to Karen,
No.
Bob, and Alexi who joined. Something's wrong with the guitar?
No, there's something wrong with my fingers. I don't play well. I took a couple of lessons from Raina Mullen, and I want to give her a shout out while we're at it because we amplify people's signal through the noise. Raina is now with a band called the Happy Fits,
Oh, nice.
and I caught their opening, like their VIP sound check thing over at the 930 Club not too recently. I didn't get a chance to talk to Raina. I just begged off. I just don't like glomming on to people when they're working.
Yeah.
Even though it was like perfectly okay to do so, I thought, well, this is more for the kids, and
Mhm.
I'm like way out of the group. But back when I first ran into Raina, um, she was playing with a band called Ghostlight, and I really didn't know her. I knew the pianist Holly Bowling, and Holly plays piano just beautifully. And one of the things I find in my life that lights me up inside, and I know I'm taking this askance with the whole thing about the guitar and such, but I took a few guitar lessons, like I said, from Raina over Zoom. And is the piano work that Holly did. She released an album called Seeking All That's Still Unsung right about the time the pandemic was wrapping up for us, the lockdown part of it
Mhm.
in 2020. And my name appears among the people who supported it inside the
Oh,
dust jacket.
nice.
And it's like, if I didn't do anything else right in my life, that I did. I've nudged the needle a little bit. Michelle's got another film out called Cracked Up, which is the Daryl Hammond story. And this would be right up your alley, Gabriella, because it's about trauma informed care.
Mhm.
And they got it introduced into legislation that people going in for addictions treatment get trauma informed care. and Congress.
Everybody should. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And Cracked Up is a movie worth seeing. It's well shot, beautifully done, I think. And again, I'm in the credits because I saw this movie and went to her when she was doing a panel with Wavy and his wife and his son. And I said, Michelle, what's next? And she said, well, I'm working on this film on Daryl Hammond. I don't have a name for it yet. And I said, how can I help?
Nice. And what did you do
That
to help?
anybody can do that. Well, I gave her about $750, and then I gave her more as time went on, to help support the cost of making a documentary film. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
She's got a wonderful, spin impact talk, and I'll give it to you to write this down. Michelle Esrick, Esrick. She's also got a very good TED Talk out, TEDx talk. And, I think it could be really useful to anybody who's suffering from addiction to hear her. She's
Mhm.
40 years plus sober now, coming
Nice.
up on 41 years this year. She's came in 85. And, she talks very vulnerably about that experience. And, the fact is she fell into working with Daryl on transcribing things, and just by being helpful to somebody else, it resulted in the documentary film. Just by wanting to tell Wavy Gravy's story, she found herself connected to D.A. Pennebaker, one of the most famous documentary filmmakers of the '60s, who did Monterey Pop. He did Don't Look Back, the Bob Dylan thing from the England tour.
Mhm.
Anyway, so, and what her spin impact talk is about sobriety, yes, but also about asking for help. The
Yes.
important thing is to be able to ask for help. And that's what I do here on Substack as gently as I can. And maybe I need to find more effective ways of doing it, of saying, I really need help to be able to keep doing what I do. And I
That's
believe
the
it's
hardest thing.
valuable work, you know?
It's the hardest thing. That's the same. It's hard for me to ask for that as well.
This is my original copy with Michelle's
Nice.
autograph on it. I picked up 10 copies. One of them I had autographed, the other 9 I gave away because I wanted to spread the gravy, right? You got
Yeah.
Wavy, if you call him up, he'll say, hey, you got some gravy in your ears. That's how he answers his phone. He's
Definitely. If you can
almost
send me also her information offline, and then,
sure. She's
we'll have to share.
also Wavy, um, will say, you have some gravy in your ears. He called up Graham Nash when these kids were arrested in Chicago
Mhm.
and said, hey, can you, David Crosby, Stephen Stills, Neil Young, come and play? We can change the world,
Mhm.
but only if we actually get into gear. So he's a very great motivational character in the background. Well,
Mhm.
and he's hard to miss in the foreground. For instance, this is like an image of him, right?
Uh-huh.
Probably during the time he was doing his Nobody for President campaign, because nobody is in Washington working for you. Nobody cares for the poor. Nobody makes better apple pie than mom. All these things, all this, nobody and nothing forms a kind of theology in the background of my head, that works really well. I and myself am nothing. I'm just a vessel through which a healing message can be transmitted if people are willing to not just have my voice be sound waves bouncing off their eardrums, but actually take it in, process what's being said, pick up what I'm laying down, and then carry it on. It doesn't do any good. If the gift sits in our hands, it putrefies and poisons the
Yeah.
person who's the recipient of the gift. This is actually being riffed off of Lewis Hyde, who wrote a book called The Gift. It's quite famous. So anyway, go ahead.
But I think also, some people might be ready to hear something or ready to receive something or not, or they might be hearing it and not ready to receive it at that point, but they're going to go back to it later, or, it will amplify later. Not the same with addiction. Like if we go back to that, I had seen people continuously coming back to treatment or back to detox. And it's not sticking and not sticking, and unfortunately, some people die before they ever get sober, and some
And I
people,
think that can be, yeah, I
you
think
know
that can be multiple reasons for that.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
hear what you're saying, and planting the seeds, never neglect the
Yes.
value of planting the seed, but I also know that there's a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, a lot of people don't know that the World Health Organization in January 2022, I think, released a statement about the amount of alcohol that is safe for human consumption. None at all.
0. It's a carcinogen. Yeah.
And not just because it's a carcinogen, but that's good reason enough by
Yeah.
itself.
That's my
So none
theory.
at all, is a safe amount of alcohol for your human consumption. The fact that we do consume it is probably just a freak of, having stumbled upon its effects, kinda like the idea that, Sunny was talking about in my show yesterday, the stoned ape theory. She didn't call it that, but that's what she was on about Jesus being a mushroom. And I don't know if you've heard about that idea or not. I have in the periphery, but when it comes down to it, the idea that a primate species was changed, its brain chemistry was altered by the use of psychedelic compounds that they found in nature.
Mhm. It's possible. Anything's possible.
And well, I don't know if anything is possible or not, but I think there's actually some valid scholarship that's gone into that. And the work of Terence McKenna is worth visiting. Have you ever heard of Terence?
No, I have not.
He's dead now, but Robert Anton Wilson, also dead, a lot of dead men. I like to try to keep them alive because they were doing some really good work.
Sounds good.
And you're all on YouTube now. It's just so much information. This guy,
Easy.
John Perry Barlow,
Okay.
um, founder of the Electronic Frontiers Foundation, also a lyricist for the Grateful Dead, of all things. This Mother American Night comes in a lyric called Black Throated Wind, a song called Black Throated Wind. Anyhow, he pointed out that this knowledge, we have the right to know now, as he was founding the Electronic Frontiers Foundation.org, EFF.org. He really advocated for a free and open internet where knowledge was available, where Teilhard de Chardin, I think is the name of the guy, who
Mhm.
envisioned the noosphere, the network of knowledge, and how we are all individually nodes on that network. We're all equal. We all have capabilities. We're diverse. So we've got different skills we could apply, but we can network our knowledge together.
I believe that 100%.
And, we can help those people who slip through the cracks. I've got a good friend. I do a gratitude list fairly often on my this, text, right? Text it out to like 100 people. About 10% of them tend to reply, but it's not always the same 10%, and it's planting seeds, right?
Yes.
So as I do that, I'm also exercising gratitude, spirit of gratitude, whether I'm feeling it or not. And I'm quite often doing it because I'm not feeling it. I'm actually feeling the opposite of gratitude. I'm feeling depressed or despairing at the situation I see out being pumped into me by the media, which is a bad drug in itself. I mean, you know about the book called The Plug In Drug? That was about television. Anyhow, you get the point. Um, So I do the gratitude list. I throw it out there, but my inspiration for that is a woman who lost both her brother and her mother to suicide. If she can do a damn gratitude list, I can do a damn gratitude list.
One thing I have done in my groups, in my addiction groups, is when people are so much down, and when you quit any kind of substances, the brain is really messed up, and it's really difficult to get that dopamine going, right? It takes a minimum of 1 year for a brain to fully recover after addiction, and you start to feel some of those joyful moments again, depending on how much depth you were in the addiction and what type of substances you have used. But one thing I was
Your
telling
mileage may vary.
one thing I was telling people, if you can start to write down one thing that was good today,
Yep.
but even if it was just you had a good food, somebody smiled at you, you were able to make it to the group, to the class, to whatever, you were able to stay into treatment. No matter what it is, the sun came out. Just write down one thing today and then write down two tomorrow and then three the next day. And pretty soon you're going to be able to write down so many things that you don't even need to write down anymore because your journal or book or whatever, it was given them to start to do that, is going to be full. But you just start with one thing. And if that's all you can do, just today you walk out and say, even, yeah, I could say, I feel crappy. I don't feel good. But I go outside, look at nature, the sun is out. Even if it's raining, that it could be good. It's good for the trees, right? So, and we get water from it. So whatever it is that you can find today,
Mhm.
you can call it gratefulness. You can just say, I have a roof over my head, whatever it is. I got
I
food.
am breathing. I start with I am breathing.
I'm reading. I'm awake. Usually, when I wake up before I get out of bed, I say a thankfulness or gratefulness that I'm alive. Right? That's where it starts from.
I can also say I get to suffer.
Yeah, yeah. Because if you're dead, you can't. Right? So.
And the thing is, a lot of us don't think we should ever have to suffer. Our media
No,
leaves us this
we have.
problem that
It's the dark.
says
It's the darkness and the light, right? Yeah. If you don't suffer, you don't have anything good in your life because you never suffered. So.
unity. And, that comes right from Upasani Maharaj, who's one of my favorite gurus out
Mhm.
there. He died in 1945 or 41. 41, I think he died. And he and Mayor Baba worked together, though. So one of his things was, I'm going to paraphrase it, but it was along these lines. And I used to use it with my father as he was dying, very gradually in what looked like multiple crucifixions. Really a lot of suffering going on, but his mind remained intact and sharp, and his sense of
Mhm.
humor was there.
Oh, that's
And I
great.
would say, well, you know what Apostoli Maharaj says about it, Dad? He says, bear your pain with pleasure. Then you'll have lots of pleasure.
Yep.
Lots of pleasure.
And
Oh,
actually,
another thing. Oop.
actually, when you talk about pain and pleasure, you know that actually pain causes a morphine release in our body,
Yep. And, the endorphins, they're called.
endorphins. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And yes, I know that. And it reminds me of my favorite song that I use as my introductory song when I was interviewed on KSKQ out in this Rogue Valley in Oregon
Mhm.
back in 2021, was it, I think? Um, and I've used it again when I came back on the show a year later. It was Silvio by Bob Dylan and Robert Hunter. Robert Hunter wrote the lyrics. Bob Dylan picked them up and put them to music. And then he had members of the Grateful Dead singing the background song, which I think a lot of people, or background lyric, whatever,
Mhm.
lines. It goes something to the effect of, I could tell you fancy, I could tell you plain, you give something up for everything you gain. Since every
Yes.
pleasure has an edge of pain, pay for your ticket and don't complain.
Very, very, very true. Very true.
And then there's this
So it's
one.
a book. Yeah.
I want to talk about this one a little bit. Becoming the instrument. There we go.
Mhm.
Hold it steady. This fellow, Kenny Werner, wrote a book before this called Effortless Mastery. And
Mhm.
it's really about, doing jazz piano playing, but becoming the instrument as a musician is one thing. But there's a line in the St. Francis prayer. Are you familiar with it?
I don't know if I'm familiar with the line you were gonna say.
Becoming the instrument. Lord, make me an
Instrument.
instrument
I
of
have
your
heard that before.
peace.
Yes.
Right, right. This is also known in AA parlance as the 11th step prayer. Make me an instrument of your peace. So where there is this, I may give that. And you'll notice that it's always, may I always seek to understand versus seeking to be understood.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us seek to be understood. You got to get my message. But
No.
if you don't get my message, then I'm all resentful. I'm like, you're not listening to me.
No.
But that's not the right way to go. The right way to go is to listen to what the other person is saying. And I'll almost be done and listen in a second. But that's why he's talking about becoming the instrument has a couple of different layers of meaning in this. And I didn't pick up on it until I was well into the book. You can see I'm well into the book. And I
Mhm.
wouldn't be reading it except that was on this radio show out in Oregon. a morning show on a small community radio station. And the hostess, I thought was doing a real great job of interviewing people. And said, "You know who I really want to hear you interview is I want to hear you interview Reed Mathis." And I IM'd Reed and said, "Hey, would you like to be on the morning show on KSKQ?" And he said, "Sure, I'll do it." And I told Holly, "Hey, Reed says he'd be happy to do it." And they arranged it and they did it. Mind blowing interview about from this bass player and guitarist and singer who is just phenomenally talented, I think,
Mhm.
and so many of them are. Holly, who I was talking about earlier, and I wanna just get together with these people and not even really I've never met Reed face to face, but because I made that little gesture and connected to other people
Yeah.
that wouldn't have otherwise met, we get this ripple effect going out, and actually Michelle calls her little film thing Ripple Effect Films.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
I
love
don't know what
that.
that.
I just have to say how I really love when that happens. I love how you and I got connected through Jessica, and I'm gonna be interviewing Jessica next week, and I got her connected with her through OBA that's also on Substack, and we did a workshop together. And
Did you?
I love when we connect and support each other. And I really appreciate you showing all those books. And now I'm thinking, should I send you my books so you can show?
Well, absolutely, I think so,
I have
and
written 16 or 18 of them by now. So
well, then I need to write a few myself. I've got a few in the hopper. I did self-publish, on the internet, so to speak, findable in archive.org, my translations of Sprengel's Handwerk and Künste and Tabellen from the 18th century.
okay.
And that's
So
something. Um,
I also help people publish and other stuff too. So you and I
I
should talk
know,
about that
I
stuff
know.
online as well.
I'm surprised we're just talking about it now. Um, One of the other guys I had on my show was the guy who wrote this one, Fare Thee Well,
Okay.
and that's a photograph he took. And he has his own company called Rock Out Books. So if you're a photographer, you know photographers, you might like to know Jay. And there's the signature page
Nice.
on this one, which was sweet of him. I met him at the Birchmere in Alexandria, which is a fairly good sized venue. He sold it out on a PowerPoint presentation that he was giving. That gives you an idea of his draw. And Jay is a great raconteur. He's been a guest on Harrowings. He will be again in the coming year, I sure hope, if I can get him again. And, you know, what he was doing was he was a little stoner kid out in New Jersey with a camera, and he didn't know what else to do but take pictures. So I
Yeah.
think this is true of a lot of us. If our impetus, if we can think of other things to do, we might get distracted. But he kept on that beat, and one thing led to another. And he's like been in Rolling Stone so many times, and he's photographed all the greats you can probably think of in the field of popular music. Um, and where was I got him connected to Holly, and Holly didn't know him.
Hmm.
You know the who was the that is Holly Lorian Adams, who's the hostess of the morning show at KSKQ on Mondays and Fridays. And you can get to KSKQ, by the way, at kskq.org or on Radio Garden. Anyway, she did a two-parter
Nice.
with Jay, as it turned out. There was so much material to work with. And one of the most, it's not about me, right? I'm just the guy in the shadows who catalyzed the connection.
You are not a guy in the shadows, just gonna say that for the
Well, I'm getting a little bit more of the spotlight, but that's not what it's about. The point is that's not what it's about. The point is that these guys got together and something happened, and Jay was so good at and like I said, this is a little
yeah.
embarrassing for me to say it, but about 2 minutes in, Holly mentioned that, "Well, health thought was really important we meet," and Jay just said very matter of factly, "Hal just loves to do that. He's a great connector of people, and we really appreciate him doing that." And I was like, "Oh, man, that's so cool," because he's a big noise, I'm not. I don't really feel like I'm a big
Each
noise,
other, right? I
right?
talk about you, you talk about me, we build a connection, and
Right,
that
and the ripple effects.
yeah, absolutely.
And if you all who are listening pick up this and broadcast it, great. There's something about the pain we go through makes us stronger.
Yeah,
And I don't want to
absolutely.
discount people's pain too much too, and I do think that
Mhm.
pain can be really destructive. I want people to go out and if you want to do something for me, the one thing I would ask is go out and watch on YouTube, it's easy to find, Robert Anton Wilson, Maybe Logic. Go to the end of it. In particular, if you want to skip over to the end, do. He's sitting there trying to get his medication that the government, George W. Bush at the time, had made inaccessible to him for the pain in his legs from post polio syndrome.
Mm.
At 70 years old, the laws are being structured to keep him in pain. And I
You
don't
know,
think that's something I want to advocate either. I understand the idea that, pain is the,
there's a lot of
the
ways.
touchstone of spiritual progress, is what they say in AA. But, real physical pain that people deal with can really transform your life in ways that are not very positive. And I don't blame it. I was really kind of relieved when my father died that he was out of his pain because
Yeah,
he had been
I don't wanna
suffering so
see
much for
people
so many
suffer.
years. Yeah.
I don't wanna see people suffer, but there's a lot of different approaches to pain now than they were used to, pushing opiates for pain is also not helpful, but there's a lot of different other strategies that can be very helpful to deal with pain, and part of it is our mind and our brain and how we approach pain, but part of it, there's other therapies from water therapy to movement to massage to heat lamps. There's just a whole range, acupuncture, acupressure. There's so many things out there that they were not available before to help to deal with pain. I do want to go back to a second to psychedelics and psychedelic experience because I felt like you wanted to share maybe a little bit more about that too. But I did say that I didn't personally have a psychedelic experience with a mushroom, but I had it without. So I did wanna say that
Yeah.
because
How?
I had experiences when I did cross over to the other side, and I had experiences and visions and things like that when I was fasting.
Okay.
When I was fasting out in the land in the Eastern Washington Scablands with veterans.
Interesting.
Veteran Rights is an amazing group. I wanna give a shout out to them since we are doing
Please.
but
Yeah.
they are doing wonderful groups welcoming home veterans, and then they taking them out to the land and do this whole ceremony and all those things, and I was able to join because I was working with veterans, and I also have people in my family and past family, active duty or prior military. So they allowed me to join, and I had this amazing 2 weeks with them when I went out to the land, and we did a 4-day fasting, and during that particular time I had visions and all those experiences and heightened experiences that what I hear from people that they had the psychedelic experience, it was really similar to that. And then when I talked to other people who went out to nature and did fasting or just really tuned into nature,
Mhm.
they had similar of those experiences. Um, and I was given a song, a few songs actually, but I was given a song when I was out there, and
Ah,
I believe it's like I write poetry, I write songs
lovely.
sometimes and things like that, but I was when I was out in nature, I had given a song, so maybe you and I sometimes can sing that song together. But, there was one of the song was about river, and one of them was about protecting Mother Earth. So
Ah.
I did wanted to share that I had that experience, but I just felt like maybe you wanted to share a little bit about your opinion since you brought up the psychedelics. So I just want us to make sure that we don't disregard that.
Well, I just know it's being used more for recovery purposes,
Yeah.
by different people. And then there's the other and actually there's a lot of shaming involved around that in the more, dogmatic side of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous and probably in Narcotics Anonymous as well. And
Mhm.
it's not for everybody, like you pointed out. I think that was
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
important observation. And you have to be very, 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 very careful under medical supervision. Bill
Yeah.
Wilson was under medical supervision when he experimented with LSD, for instance, in the
Yeah.
1950s. As was well known, I believe, if it's not he was one of the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. That may not be well
Yeah.
known here. When I came in, I asked how it got started, and somebody told me, "Oh, some guy named Bill Wilkerson." That was
Mhm.
close, not quite it, but it doesn't matter. Who cares? It's not about the person. But getting back to the holotropic breath work of Stanislav
Yeah.
Grof, who was working in Hopkins, Johns Hopkins, which is one of the main centers for this kind of research. That's interesting. I haven't actually done it myself, but I don't know that I know anybody who has. The veterans thing you're talking about, I have a friend who's an ex-Navy captain, and he headed the psychiatry division at Bethesda Naval Hospital. So that gives you an idea of his credentials, right?
Mhm.
He traveled around the world with Arlen Specter, actually. Arlen would connect him to the heads of state that he wanted psychoanalyzed. Right. Because he holds multiple degrees, PhDs in psychoanalysis and MDs in emergency medicine and psychiatry. And he gave this really nice talk that's out there on YouTube. It's findable on PTSD that a lot of veterans suffer from, and a lot of humans suffer from.
Yeah.
Because as Ron was talking, a lot of the thing I was talking about being thrown into the universe, unbidden and helpless, that's traumatic from the
Yeah.
get-go. Okay. And he said, the thing is, life will hurt you. You might want to write that down. But
Yeah.
you got to learn how to deal with your boo-boos. I love his phraseology for it, right? It's really down to this really concrete essence. And then he walks through after about an hour of contextualizing himself, which can be a little tough to listen to because I guess it ain't bragging if you've really done it, right? Um, anyhow, he's quite a character. Somebody said one time when they went to see him the first time, said, "What the hell is Dennis Hopper doing practicing medicine?" If you know the actor Dennis Hopper, it might contextualize a little bit. But anyway, so there's other stories that are springing into my head competing for
Attention.
a way out of my mouth. But, as he goes through the steps, he says, these young men who are coming off of Fallujah patrols where they've been blown up and lost their limbs, if they get into a recovery community that's supportive and they get themselves a service position, now a lot of things have to happen, and they work the steps, they do well.
Mhm.
And he has the experience of watching a lot of people come through this. He helped found the Betty Ford Clinic. The guy's been sober since Pearl Harbor Day, appropriately enough for a
Wonderful.
Navy vet, of 1976. So I think he has a little bit of credentials. Next year, in other words, he's going to hit 50 years. And Anthony Hopkins hit 50 years a couple of days ago. He put out a little thing to talk about that. And I just love the fact he does that. When I was in Pittsburgh, I came there after the Silence of the Lambs had been shot, but it was shot there in Pittsburgh. And during that time, Tony, as he was known, was going to meetings around Pittsburgh. A lot of my
Mhm.
friends who were around then knew him. And that was kind of cool. You got access to people you'd never have access to. I probably can't dig it out right now in all these stacks, but my grand sponsor in Pittsburgh, now deceased, Buddy Norden, Lewis Norden, was a novelist. He wrote a novel called Wolf Whistle, which is kind of famous. And
Okay.
the reason it's famous is it's really centered on a fictionalization through sort of magic realism was kind of his thing, um, of the murder of Emmett Till. I'm not sure if you'd be familiar with the murder of Emmett Till, but it was really one of those seminal events that happened back in the 50s when a young man coming and visiting cousins down in Mississippi was lynched basically for wolf whistling a white woman.
Mhm.
And his mother, when his body was returned to her, had an open casket to show the world what was done to her boy.
Mhm.
And Buddy became friends with Emmett Till's mom. But these kind of traumas that we go through, and I think Buddy was working a lot of that out as he was recovering um, in Pittsburgh as a creative writing professor. And he would say, there's a fine line between awful and awful funny. He was known as the clown prince of Southern literature. And one of his quotes that I think might be a good thing to wrap on, because I've kept you now 90 minutes, it looks like, is there's great pain in all love, but we don't care. It's worth it.
Just keep loving.
And that's the solution: connection,
Absolutely.
unconditional love, and acceptance.
100%. You're speaking my language.
Yeah, that's
That's
the
why
that's the
we
message.
had
If
to
there's anything I wanted to say, that was it.
that's why we had to connect. And usually that's one thing that I would like to ask people when I talk to them is like, if there's one thing you want to send out to the world, what it would be. And you just did it all on your
Yeah.
own. I didn't even have to ask. So perfect.
I know how these things work generally, but 90 minutes is usually about the limit, right?
I don't know. I feel like we could probably talk days, but yeah,
Yeah,
90
that's
minutes is
fine.
good. We can talk again,
One of mine,
keep going
I
back and forth.
I'll get one last, this is like the after show, folks, but,
Okay.
um, one of mine, was a little podcast was with Skip Healy, and
Mhm.
those who don't know Skip, Barlow is his first name, really, but he goes by Skip. He was listed in Yankee Magazine as the world's greatest fifer, and I am also a fifer. Fife and drum is our culture. He had gotten it in New England. I got it in Colonial Williamsburg, but we connected really well. We talked for like 2.5 hours, a little
Mhm.
over, on our first talk, and the second one was probably 2 hours as well. And I got to get him back on. I meant to, and we've sort of slipped. Um, but he was talking about, the point was that how long we talked, but he's making flutes over in Switzerland, and he's doing a podcast of his own called the Empty Pockets Podcast. So look him up, folks. If you like wooden flutes in particular, the keyed kind, not like fifes, which have no keys. Very beautiful work, but he's probably winding down doing that because he's got some issues with his hands.
Mhm.
And that can be really tragic to a musician, but he's had a long career. And one of his things was he was out in San Francisco doing a gig or something, and he had a break, and he was on the day, and he was sitting on Pier 39 in San Francisco smoking a joint. And he heard somebody come up behind him and say, "Man, that smells really good." And he expected to be turning around to see San Francisco's finest, ready to, you know, give him a bad time. But it wasn't. It was Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead. And if you don't know Jerry, um, do I have it here? Yeah, it's Jerry.
Mhm.
Um, Jay Blakesberg's Secret Space of Dreams book on Jerry. And Jerry was there in front of him, and he was just like, "Okay, well, I've got another," and gave him another one, rolled it up, whatever. And Jerry joins him, and they're talking about banjo playing. Skip went out of his way not to let on that he knew who he was. I was like, "He obviously did," and I think that's nice. I think that when you can have a real connection with somebody who's used to being mobbed by fans, right? So much so that it probably killed Jerry. I don't know if you know his trajectory and addiction and overeating, and he ended up with his veins or arteries apparently that should have been good and open like that, being about the diameter of a pencil lead when they did the autopsy. Anyhow, he died at 53. Looked like he was 70 easily. Um, but they taught banjo. And Skip said at the end of the conversation, he said, "What's your name, man?" And he said, "My name's Skip, and I think I know your name." And then he said, "The stuff I was telling you about the banjo, I don't think I've ever told anybody that before."
They just meant to have that conversation.
And so Skip is the carrier of that story, right? It's
Mhm.
it's his to carry on and transmit that Cherry had never given to anybody else. It's such a gift to give attention, to give story to each other. I
I
guess
do
it's
believe that storytelling have so much power, and that's why, it's important for us to connect and share our stories, and that
right.
hopefully helps other people, right? When we share our stories.
And if we can actually write them, so you can publish them. So I'm going to definitely look into that with you and see what we can do together.
Absolutely.
I don't know the the genre entirely of the things you put out in the past, so I'll have to look into
Oh,
that.
for me, it's I have to believe the person, and I already believe in you, so there's no question, right? So
Well, I'm not trying to put anybody on, that's for sure. I am trying to boost people,
you are
but I'm not good at boosting myself. Go ahead.
which I really appreciate. And I think um, that's the problem I have too. It's like more times I'm supporting other people and other people's work than my own. But we can learn together how to do that, promote ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting role to play in the world, and a lot of it has to do with feelings of worthlessness, you
Hmm.
know? The deep down inside, I just realized this recently as I was writing Christmas Eve Eve, which is the name of my post. About midway through, you see, I say, I just had a epiphany. And then I do a parenthetical saying, I almost wrote a small epiphany, but
Hmm.
they're epiphanies, right?
Yeah.
Small, large, who cares? I mean, it's probably not a thing. And it was this that I have gotten my sense of self worth from finding people, seeing them, seeing what they're trying to achieve, and putting my own shoulder to the wheel to try to help them achieve it. And then whether I get any notice for it or not, I don't care. It does it for me. That's what lights me up inside. But that's also like some kind of like, what's the word for it? Masochism? Some kind of self harm at some level.
I would say it's a block. It's there for me to
Yeah,
see,
I do.
and I'm working on dissolving it too because
Yeah.
yeah, it somehow it's easier to support and promote other people than your own work.
Right. I mean, I was taught we don't blow our own horn. I just did a
Yeah.
thing where I used AI to go through all of my Substack and also all of what it could find on the web and X, wherever, about the contributions my parents made to civilization.
Hmm.
As a power couple of sorts, meeting in the state archives as young archivists in
Hmm.
Richmond, and they dedicated their lives to the preservation and amplification of dead people. From the 18th century, mind you. I mean, and it was spun off of the good effects of none other than J.D. Rockefeller Jr. And I don't
Hmm.
know if you know about the Rockefeller dinner that was given in 1940 to the members of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that Rockefeller money sort of saved Bill Wilson from going completely into the poorhouse.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's well, J.D. Rockefeller Jr. made a hell of an impact. The Rockefeller Foundation has made a hell of an impact.
Hmm.
Carnegie made a hell of an impact. Look at the
Yeah.
Carnegie Institute for Peace over here in
Yes.
D.C., for instance, you know? And sometimes we really poo-poo the big robber barons, you know? I don't know, man. It's whenever we judge, we're probably off the mark. We don't know. We just know how
There's
it
no point.
seems to us, right?
There's no point of judgment, right? Because you don't know the whole story. It's easy
Right.
to judge somebody without knowing the whole story.
And
So I
that
just
brings me
don't like to judge at all.
Yeah, that brings me back to the Warhol thing. He used to get judged a lot for the flatness of his representations of the world, and he says, I'm deeply superficial.
That works.
You wanna know what's behind it? Just look at the surface of my paintings. That's all there is. There's nothing to it.
Hmm.
Nothing. There's nothing to it, you know? Nothing is very important. Nothing matters a great deal.
But it's also everything, right? It's all together. You cannot have one without the other.
Oh, do I have that handy? It was here a second ago. Oh, dang. I don't seem to have it on the surface of anything here. But there's a book around here called The Everything and the Nothing. And there's a song by Pete Townsend called Everything and the Nothing, Everything and Nothing, or Nothing is Everything. Nothing is Everything. That's what it's called. And Let's See Action is this parenthetical title. Let's see action. Actions is what matters. That's what I tell people, in the fellowship who are struggling with, I haven't found my higher power. Who cares?
Hmm.
You don't need one. This
Yeah.
high low distinction, what's that about? We're all equal.
Yes, we
There's
are.
no high or low. And what really matters is not what you think, feel, or believe, it's what you do. Now, feelings, they can really wreck us. Emotions, they're that's a real thing that happens within us, but we can actually choose our attitude. Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning.
Sometimes, sometimes you can choose it.
Well, you can choose your attitude to what happens to you, is his thesis. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. If you don't know it yet, please know it. Okay, we probably ought to wrap. I gotta, get myself to the restroom, I think, at one point. I mean, when I was talking to Skip,
Sure.
too, I was gonna blow up a gasket.
You can't hold it. No, and I want your kidneys to work well, so please do if that's what you need to do.
Right,
But I
right.
think there's definitely gonna be more, and I appreciate
Oh, please.
conversations.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you
been
so
fun.
much. And, on that note, my final word's gonna be to all the people who are here, thank you so much for joining today. I know many of you are here to support this amazing gentleman, uh, and please spread the world and the love that you said. And somebody, Alexis, just joined. Alexis, we are just wrapping up, but this is going to be available on Substack and both of our YouTubes later today. We've been here an hour and 40 minutes, and I'm sure there's going to be more. I'm just going to say for all of you out there that you're beautiful and perfect just the way you are. Thank you so much for being here and sending love for the next year. And we are going into horse, I believe, shedding the snake skin and going into horse, galloping away toward wellness and health and a beautiful year. Thank
Yep.
you so much
Happy
for
New
being here.
Year in
Happy
advance.
New Year. Bye, everybody.
Thanks again.